Assalamu alaikum everybody, and welcome to Bedtime Stories. I will be reading to you today some interesting stories. I hope you're all doing well. Now, have you brushed your teeth? And are you cozy in your pajamas? Yes, it's that time again, and if you haven't brushed your teeth, don't worry, you can do it after the story. So should we find out what we're reading today? We are going to read goodnight stories from the Quran. Now, can any of you remember where we stopped last time? Let's find out where we was. Because we did read some interesting stories in our last bedtime story, didn't we? So, today we will be reading The Valley of Ants. The Prophet Sulaiman, or Solomon alayhi salam, was the son of Prophet Dawood, or David, you can say in English. Dawood was an almighty king and he ruled Jerusalem. He was given wonderful powers by Allah. When Sulaiman alayhi salam grew up, he was blessed with prophethood and also he was made king. Allah gave him a very special knowledge. He was able to understand the language of the birds. Oh my goodness, how amazing is that? He can understand what the birds say. By Allah's special favor, he could control the winds too. He was also in control of the jinns. He used to employ them and he did whatever he liked. One day, Sulaiman alayhi salam was passing through a valley at the head of the almighty army. In this valley there lived a large number of ants. Seeing the huge army coming, one of the ants hurriedly warned its fellow ants to run away from there. So he heard the ants' plea and smiled. Then he was suddenly startled by the thought of how merciful Allah was. He turned to the Lord and praised him. He prayed, "O Allah, O my Lord, make me grateful to you for your favors, which you have given me and my parents, and I will do what is right to please you, and by your grace make me one of your righteous servants." So Sulaiman alayhi salam made this dua, this prayer, to help the ants. Because remember, he's got this special knowledge that Allah gave him, so he can understand what the animals are saying. Isn't that amazing? What would you do if you had the power, if Allah blessed you with that knowledge to hear what the animals are saying? Do you think you would help them? Let's move on to the next chapter, the Queen's Throne. One day, the hundreds of hoopies said to Prophet Sulaiman, who understood the language of the birds, "I have just seen something, you know. I come to you from far away in Sheba, which is in Yemen, where I found a woman ruler. She is blessed with every virtue and has a splendid throne. But she and her subjects worship the sun instead of Allah." So this person, that she worships the sun and not Allah. The sun as in the sun that rises. With this, the Hudud praised Allah. There is no deity save Allah. He is the Lord of the supreme throne. Sulaiman gave the letter to Hudhud, asking him to deliver this to the Queen. After receiving the letter, the Queen sent some valuable gifts to Sulaiman. Sulaiman refused to accept. Then she herself set out to meet Sulaiman alayhi salam. So can you imagine, this queen is sending gifts to our Prophet Sulaiman, and he refused it. He didn't want to take gifts from her because he was quite upset that she didn't worship Allah. Sulaiman alayhi salam asked his people, "Which one of you can bring me the queen's throne before she arrives here?" A very powerful jinn, Ifrit, his name was, volunteered. "I will bring it to you before you rise from your seat." That's how fast the jinns can move. Within a blink of an eye, they can be from here to a different area, just before you can even blink. But don't be scared. But one of his aides, who was deeply versed in the book, brought her throne to him in the twinkling of an eye. Seeing the glittering throne, Sulaiman alayhi salam displayed no pride, but humbly prostrated himself in gratitude to Allah. "This is the favour of my Lord, to test my gratitude. He who gives thanks has much to gain, but he who is ungrateful will surely lose." So always remember, children, always be grateful for what you have. Always be thankful for everything that you have. As for Allah, He has no needs. He is supreme in honour. When the queen reached Jerusalem, she was invited to sit down on the throne, which had been slightly altered. She realised, however, that it was her own throne, and was amazed at the power of Allah. She was very surprised to see her throne was in Sulaiman's house. Sulaiman alayhi salam ushered her into his beautiful place. When she stepped on the floor, she tucked up her skirt, thinking it was a pool of water. But Sulaiman alayhi salam explained that it was just the floor glass, beneath which water flowed. It looked like something which it was not. In the same way, there was only one reality, and that Allah, God, is the creator. Everything was His. Everything was His creation. So the queen should give up worshipping the sun and worship the creator of all things. She understood that the Prophet Sulaiman's words. She finally understood the Prophet Sulaiman's words and at once accepted his message, saying, "O my Lord, I have indeed sinned. I now submit with Sulaiman to the Lord of all the worlds." The Man and the Big Fish. A very old and powerful community who lived around 1800 BC in the Nineveh, some 230 miles northwest of Baghdad. Allah sent the Prophet Yunus, who is also known as Jonah, to this community to guide them into the right path. Yunus preached to them for a very long time, warning them to turn away from their wickedness, from the bad things they used to do. So wickedness is something that is not nice. But they paid no attention to his words. Angry and upset, Yunus left these people and headed towards the seaport, where he boarded a ship. No sooner was it to sail than the sky grew very, very dark. There was a terrible storm with the huge waves crashing down against the ships. Thinking the ill luck was due to some slave having run away. They thought maybe some bad things are happening because the slaves ran away. The sailors drew lots to find a man and hurl him aboard. The man's name was Yunus. He was picked out from the draw. So he was forced to jump into a ship. So they all made a hat and they wrote everyone's name down. And the name that they picked out was actually Prophet Yunus's name. So they decided they would push him into the sea. He was forced to jump off. As he struggled in the water, gasping for air, a great big whale ate him up and swallowed him, and he went right down to the whale's tummy. He was still alive though. Now Yunus alayhi salam realized that he had left the people of Nineveh too early without completing the task set by Allah. So he had a job to do in Nineveh. And what did Prophet Yunus alayhi salam do? He decided to leave, but he did not get Allah's permission to leave. So Allah was very, very angry with him. So when Prophet Yunus realized his mistake, he cried from the depth of the darkness, "There is no God but Allah. Glory be to you, Allah. I have done wrong." Allah heard his prayers. The Quran tells us, if he had not said he was sorry and glorified Allah in the prayer, he would have stayed in the belly of the fish till the day of judgment. The fish, at Allah's wish, swam close to the land and left Prophet Yunus safely on the beach, where he found himself under a tree of juicy fruits that taste yummy. Yunus then returned to his people and preached to them again. All of them, over 100,000 people, responded to his call. So the lesson of this story of Prophet Yunus alayhi salam is twofold. So firstly, the great duty to deliver the message of Allah to others now falls on every single one of us as believers, as Muslims. We ignore this duty and become desperate as Prophet Yunus did at his first task. So we will be found guilty if we don't carry out these tasks set for us by Allah. So basically, if we are supposed to do something that Allah has mentioned in the Quran to do, so we have to do it. And if we don't do it, then Allah will not be pleased with us. Now, our next chapter is Gardens Watered with Running Stream. Long, long ago, there lived two friends, one a rich gardener and the other a poor farmer. The gardener owned two beautiful, well-watered gardens full of flowers and all kinds of fruits, especially grapes and dates. He thought all this was the result of his hard and clever planning and all his hard work. Rather than thinking it was a blessing from Allah and thanking Allah, one day he showed the poor farmer around. He showed him his garden and was very, very happy. He was so proud of all his fruits and all his flowers. He said to his friend, "I am richer than you, and I'm more stronger than your group, and surely this will never perish," which means it will never disappear. "Nor do I believe that the hour of doom will ever come." So he's basically saying he doesn't believe in the day of judgment or the last day. And he became very arrogant in what he was saying and his attitude and behaviour. When the poor farmer saw his friend behave in this really bad way, he asked, "Have you no faith in him who created you from dust, from a little germ and fashioned you into a man? As for myself, Allah is my Lord, and I will associate no one else with him. Instead of entering your garden very proudly, you should have acted very humble and said, what Allah has given me surely comes to pass. There is no strength except with Allah. That's what you should have said. The very next day, calamity struck. Lots of bad things were happening. Can any of you tell me why bad things were happening? Yes, that's right. The rich man's garden was destroyed. Everything was ruined. All the fruits were destroyed. All the vines, everything came tumbling down. And the gardener was very shocked. Realizing his mistake, he cried so much, if only I had served no other gods besides my God. If only I had praised Allah and I didn't act ignorantly and arrogantly and be so rude to my friend. So he realized what he did wrong. So never be rude about what you do, what you have. Never be too proud and say you have more things that are better than your friends, or your things, or your group of friends may be better than your other group of friends. So never be horrible to people. So the story teaches us never to speak too proudly. Always speak in humility. Whatever Allah has ordained must surely come to pass. So there is no power except with Allah. So let's try and remember that. And then hopefully nothing bad will happen. The good news of a son. That's our next chapter. The Prophet Zakir alayhi salam was a noble man. Prophet Zakir. How many of us have heard this name before? He was an uncle of Maryam, who is Mary, and the priest of the shrine in Jerusalem. When Maryam was given to the service of Allah, the Prophet Zakir was made Maryam's guardian. Whenever the Prophet Zakir alayhi salam visited Maryam in her mirhab, in the shrine, he would find that she had fresh food. He would be amazed that this would happen. And he would ask Maryam, where did this food come from? She said, this is from Allah. Maryam would answer, Allah gives in plenty to whoever He pleases. When the Prophet Zakir reached old age, he was still childless. He prayed to Allah for a son. My bones are very weak. My head is shining and full of grey hair. Yet, my Lord, I have never been disappointed in praying to you, said Prophet Zakir. Let's turn the page. I think it got a bit stuck there. Allah heard his beautiful prayer and said, Zakir, we bring you good news of a son whose name will be Yahya. But Zakir alayhi salam wondered, my Lord, how shall I have a son when my wife has reached old age? I am now very old too. But Allah said, so it shall be. It is easy for me, as I have created you, before which you were nothing. And so, in his old age, Prophet Zakir's prayers were answered. And he had a son whose name was Yahya, also known as John. Yahya grew up to be a loving soul. Allah gave him wisdom, grace and purity while yet a child, and made him a prophet. Yahya alayhi salam grew up to be a good man. honouring his father and his mother, always being kind to his mum and his dad. He never thought too much of himself, and nor did he disobey Allah. He always listened to what Allah asked him of. This story reminds us that Allah helps the believers in wonderful ways. He hears the prayers of his servants, and he can make anything possible. So always remember, when you want something, make a prayer to Allah and ask him, and Allah will answer your call. Anything you like, just make dua, and you never know, Allah can grant your wish. Thank you so much for joining me today for Bedtime Stories, and I will see you again soon. Have a good night. Assalamu alaikum.